right, let's go ahead and get started. So I am Carly Toney. I am the graduate assistant at the Financial Success Center at VCU. I run all things Money Spot. Today we are doing our webinar about gaming the system, how to win at the credit game. This webinar will be recorded and posted on YouTube for future viewing by you or other students. So you'll be able to share this at the end of the webinar. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A feature, and we will either answer it live right away, or we will take some time at the end to answer questions. But I don't want you to take my word for it. Credit is important and can be very confusing. So to explain it all to you, I have one of our peer coaches from the Money Spot here. So she can give you perspective as a student, student to student, to explain kind of how credit works and how you can build and improve it while you're in college. So Dorian, go ahead and take it away.
So hi guys, I'm Dorian Philpott. As Carly mentioned, I am a money coach. I'm a junior studying economics with a minor in political science. So that's just a little bit of background about me. I hope you guys enjoy this presentation. And like Carly said, definitely this can be as interactive as you guys want it to be. So if you have questions, definitely put them in the Q&A feature, or I might ask you guys some questions. So I want you to engage with me a little bit in the chat feature because I want to hear from you. So, Carly. Okay. So, like Carly said, this is how to win at the credit game. So today we're going to be talking about what credit is, how to use credit, how to build up your credit, and then how to improve it. So to start with, what is credit? You're probably wondering or thinking that you probably know a little bit about what it is, but credit technically is the ability to borrow money and pay it back later. That's what it is. It's not just cards. It can be a lot of different things. And then to go along with that, debt is actually the money that you're borrowing and that you need to repay. Okay, so there's a few different main types of credit that people are familiar with. So I want to hear in the chat, are you guys familiar with these specific types of credit? There's credit cards, the personal loan, the student loan, and mortgages. Those are all the main types of credit. If you have any of these kinds of credit currently, I want to hear from you in the chat. Let me know what you have, what you're kind of familiar with already. But also, it's really important to know what credit isn't. So a lot of people get kind of confused about credit and they're thinking, oh, well, if I have those prepaid Visa cards or gift cards, that acts like credit, right? Because you swipe it when you want to buy something. No, that is not considered credit. And also debit cards are not considered credit, even though you can click the little credit button when you're buying something and pretend like it's credit. It is not actually credit. It doesn't impact your credit report or credit score at all. Only credit cards, personal loans, student loans, and mortgages count as credit. Okay, so now let's think about, why do we even need credit? Why can't I just pay cash for everything that I have? So as far as renting and buying a home, credit is really important because credit acts as sort of your history, your financial history for lenders. They like to see that in order to help you get approved for mortgages and stuff like that. They'll want to know, okay, what's your credit history? So that can impact your ability to buy a home. And also, as far as renting goes, a lot of apartment complexes or whatever it is, they will look into your credit to see, okay, can we trust this person? Do we think renting to them is a good idea? Do we think that they're going to pay on time and pay their rent? So it's really important to think about your credit in that way. Also, credit can help you make big purchases. You know, there's sometimes things come up that you might want to buy that you can't necessarily pay for in full at the moment. Like say you need a new couch or a table or something like that. You might not be able to afford that all at one time. So credit is there to help you pay for those things in upfront, and then you can work to pay it back later. You can also use credit to help you refinance some of your loans to make them a little bit more manageable, but you need to have credit for them to look through to make sure that it's smart for you before they're willing to, like lenders are willing to help you refinance your loans. Also, credit can help you get a job. Sometimes your employer will look at your credit report and your credit score before they're even willing to hire you, again, to make sure that you are responsible and reliable. So you want to keep that credit up so you're not closing off any job opportunities. Okay, so now let's talk about the credit report. So a credit report is basically a record of your entire credit and financial history, and lenders and credit card companies will look at that to determine how likely you are to repay on a debt that you have. So it will cover like a lot of different information on it. Like it'll have some personal information about you, like your address, some of your employer, stuff like that. But it's all really just to help them understand who you are and who you are as a borrower. So there's 3 main credit bureaus that produce credit reports. There's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So you are eligible to receive one free credit report from each of those 3 bureaus every single year through annualcreditreport.com. So it's really important that you take advantage of those free services to you, because it's better to be able to see what the lenders and the credit card companies are seeing as opposed to not being able to see. So we at the Money Spot recommend that you pick one credit bureau every 4 months and you get your credit report from them. So for example, say in January, you get your credit report from Experian. Then again in May, you're coming back to annualcreditreport.com to get another credit report and say that one's from Equifax. And then in September, another 4 months later, you come back and you say, okay, I'm ready to get my 3rd credit report, and you get that one from TransUnion. So that way you can check and verify with each one to make sure that there's no nuances and stuff like that, and that you're really aware of what's going on. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, you are actually eligible to get a free credit report every single week through that same annualcreditreport.com website. That's a really nice feature that they've picked up since March to help make sure that, you know, as people are experiencing such like large change in their life or inconvenience maybe, that they're able to keep track of their finances in an official way. So once you get your credit report, that's when you want to be looking through it and checking to make sure everything's correct. You'll be able to see all of your different forms of credit all in that one document. And you're also checking to make sure that there's no charges that don't make sense to you or things like that. Because if you're seeing fraudulent charges, you need to be disputing them as soon as possible, because that's probably impacting your ability to get approved for a loan, and it's something that you didn't do. So you want to try to fix those things as soon as possible and get them removed from your report. Okay, so next we'll talk about the credit score, which is calculated based on what's on your credit report through the FICO score usually, although Credit Karma does also do credit scores. It's a little bit of a different calculation though. Okay, so on this pie chart, as you can see, your payment history makes up the largest portion of your credit score. So that is the most important thing that you want to focus on your credit report, and that is adding to your credit score. So you want to think about, are you paying your bills on time every single time? That's the most important thing that you can do to keep your score up or to help maintain the score that you want. This doesn't necessarily build up your score, but if you're not paying attention to your payment history and you're not paying regularly every single time, it can hurt you. The next largest category is the utilization. So that looks at how much credit are you using in comparison to the total credit that's available to you. So say you have a credit limit on your credit card and it's like $1,000. Your credit utilization rate is the amount of that overall total card limit that you are actually using. So say you're only using $300 of that $1,000 limit every month. So that means that your credit utilization rate is 30%. So you want to try to keep that credit utilization ratio as close to or below 30% as possible. That will just help show lenders and credit card companies that you're being responsible about your credit and you're not using too much at one time, like more than you're actually able to pay back. I know it can be a little bit hard sometimes to keep that utilization rate around 30% or below, but just try your best to. In the long run, it will help you. The next largest category is your credit length. So it's how long have you been holding that particular type of credit or all credit. So the longer you are holding credit of a specific type, the more reliable you are as a customer. Like because a lot of your college students, there's not a lot of information about you currently on your credit report. So just any credit length that you have can definitely be a plus. And that's something that you'll want to think about later because there's not quite so much information right now about you and how you're paying back your debts. So a way to make sure you're keeping your credit length up is that you say you open a card, a credit card, you want to keep that card open even if you decide you're not going to be using it that often anymore. You don't want to close off any of your credit just to make sure that you're keeping up that length of history. They like to see that because that makes them think that you're a really loyal customer to them. Okay, next category is new credit. So that's really, okay, have you applied for any new types of credit recently? Have you applied for a new credit card? Have you applied for a new loan, a new mortgage, any of those kinds of things? When you are applying for one of those new forms of credit, it does put a hard inquiry on your credit report or your account, where that basically means that that lender or that company is really looking into your credit to make sure that they think that you are reliable enough to give that money to. So that hard inquiry will bring down your score for a brief period of time because new credit is a big risk to those companies. But in the long run, it's not a bad thing to apply for new credit at the appropriate time. The last big thing that makes up your credit score is the type of credit that you have. So you do want to be able to show that you have diverse types of credit, like, okay, do I have some loans? Yes. Do I have some credit cards? Yes. Like you want to try to diversify as best you can. I know that not for everyone that's not always possible, but it's, something to keep in the back of your mind because it's a much smaller part of your score, say, than the utilization or the payment history. It's not something you need to worry too much about, but it's something just to consider. Like I said before, the most important thing for you to be doing is paying on time, every time.
Dorian, we've got a question here. How can I keep a low utilization rate if I have a low amount of available credit to one card?
Okay. Let me think about that. I mean, I think that you can always, like I'll kind of get into a little bit later, you can try to ask for a larger credit limit. They're not always going to give it to you, but if you're, showing that you are making the payments on time consistently, they might be willing to extend your limit a little bit when they're seeing that you're a great customer to them. Otherwise, I know it's hard, but just trying to be mindful of your purchases and that kind of thing to pay attention to. Like I said, it's hard sometimes to keep that low utilization rate, but you're just trying the best that you can to do it.
And also just not keeping a lot of money on that card. Utilization too is like when we think about like maxing out credit cards, that'd be over utilizing our credit, right? So thinking about it that way as well. So you can keep that smaller utilization rate also just by paying it off every month.
Absolutely. Okay. So next, like I mentioned before, is your credit score, which is based off the FICO score system. Like I said before, Credit Karma, they use like a slightly different calculation, but it should be pretty close to the same. So your credit score is just like kind of a calculation that they do based on the information from your credit report to determine how good you are with your credit. And it's really important to pay attention to your credit score because it can help you see the bigger like financial picture that you have going on. But it's best to look at your credit score in conjunction with your credit report, because that can kind of help you see, okay, I lost some points here. Why do I think I lost points? Okay, let's look at my credit report and see, have I been paying on time? Have I been paying every time? Have I did something happen? Is there a fraudulent charge? Like you need to use them together to understand the whole financial picture, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I'm just looking at my score, like it's low, but like I don't know why. Like, yes, you do know why, because you can see the credit report. But it goes from 300 to 850. And then, you can be anywhere within the range, but you're trying to be good or excellent, but it can take some time to build up your score. Okay. So the next thing that we'll talk about is building credit. So there's a few different ways that you can go about building up credit. The first thing that you can do is apply for unsecured credit. That's when you kind of like go in on your own and apply for like a loan or a card. And then that's probably the most common way or the most familiar way to people about how to build up credit. Where you say, okay, I want to apply for a credit card. And then you start looking up banks or credit unions to pick from. It's kind of easiest to start with the bank or credit union that you already have accounts with, just because they already know you and have a pre-established relationship with you, especially if you have never had a credit card before or any sort of loan before. It can be a little bit easier to start there, but not impossible to pick something else. And then if you're approved, you can try to start by picking one thing in your budget that you want to use the card for, say like gas or groceries, and then you just work to pay that balance off every single month, just as like a way to start with getting into the routine of paying every time on time. You're picking one thing, paying that off, and then as you get more comfortable with it, you can start taking on more things. You can apply for a small loan the same way for something that you might already have the money for. And then like this, that works the same way as the credit card does. If for some reason you're not approved for an unsecured credit card, or an unsecured loan, you can go to a retail store or like a gas station and get one of their cards. They can be a little bit easier to get because they're just they're like looking a little bit more for customers, so they can be easier to start with. But you want to beware because they do have extremely high interest rates. So you don't want to be purchasing a bunch of things from like that retail store card or that gas station card and then not paying it off, because the interest rates are significantly higher than they might be on the credit card. Okay, so the next option is secured credit. So it works kind of in a similar way to unsecured credit, but you have to save up your own money first. You can start with like as little as $200, and then you go to the bank or your lender and you say, hey, like, I want to get a secured loan or a secured card. And then you put that 200 or however much money you saved up, you put that money into a bank account with that specific lender, and they will give you either a small loan or a line of credit that is exactly equivalent to the amount of money that you deposited into that account. And that becomes your credit line. So then you, in the same way as the unsecured card, you can, okay, pick one thing, start buying things with that card, but then you want to pay it off, because if you're not paying it off on time, then, and you're consistently not doing that, then the lender can say that you defaulted, and then they can take that money that you put down in that deposit away from you because you're not paying. So you want to keep that in mind because you want to be able to hold on to your money. But there is a higher likelihood to be approved for secure credit because it is not as risky to the lender because you are putting down your own money as collateral. When you do a secured loan, you want to make sure that you're just paying back that exact amount that they tell you to every single month. So then you can show that for like a full year, however long it takes you to pay it off, that you have done the work to develop good credit habits. The secured credit always has lower interest rates than unsecured credit, like I mentioned, because it's at a lower risk. If you are trying to build credit up, you want to make the payments on time for a full year, like on your card or on your loan. But if you're trying to improve credit that might not be very good, you want to try to make the extra payments to help improve your score a little bit quicker. Like, it's a little bit different than if you're just trying to build up the credit to start. You want that length in comparison to if it's not very good and you're trying to improve it, you're trying to improve it as quickly as you can. The last thing that you can do to build up your credit is find an authorized user. So basically that's where you find somebody that you know who has a credit card, and then you add your name to their card to be able, and then you'll get your own card in the mail. That's linked to that account. So then you can start using that. So the person whose account you become an authorized user on, they don't have to have good credit, but they need to, their card needs to be in good standing and have a good payment history. It is really important to pay attention to kind of whose account you're becoming an authorized user on, because if you or that other person maxes out that card that you share or you miss payments, it will hurt both of your scores because you went in on the account together. So it's really important to really be conscious when you're becoming an authorized user, because it is a higher risk, because not only are you reliant on yourself, you're now reliant on other people to do the right and mature things. Another thing to mention is becoming an authorized user doesn't build up credit as quickly as it would if you went in on if you got a secured credit card or loan, or if you did unsecured credit cards or loans, just because it's a little bit of a different process. Okay. So there are a few ways, like I mentioned, to improving your credit that are a little bit different than building up your credit. So the first thing that you want to do is pay down your debt. Like I mentioned before, the most important thing that you can do to improve your credit, keep your credit where you want it to be, is pay on time every single time. And then even to try to keep your utilization rates below that 30%, because if you aren't racking up larger balances than that, then you don't have to work to pay them back, like you are only affording what you can afford. Like, you're not trying to do too much stuff, like do something that is putting you in financial strain. So the lower your credit utilization rate, the better off you are, and the more frequently and like on time you're paying, the better off you'll be. So that goes like into making extra payments if you need to, if you feel like you really have the money to, like, hey, like I'm making the extra payments to help to lower my debt and be more in control of my financial situation. And in the long run, if you're making those extra payments, the overall interest that you owe is decreasing too because your balance is shrinking. So there's less interest accruing on those balances. And then lastly, like I mentioned before, you can try to request an increase on your credit limit because that will lower your utilization rate. Companies might not always be willing to do it, but I think that if you're showing that you're a strong customer and that you are trying your best to follow these other general rules that I've mentioned, they should be willing to kind of work with you and play around with your limit. So just final tips, don't miss payments. Excuse me, it's really important that you are working very hard not to miss payments. And then also don't put things on credit that you don't think you'll be able to pay off in a reasonable amount of time. That's really important. Don't go racking up all these bills on your credit and then be like, I can't pay it back for like a few years because I don't have the money. That's not a smart financial practice, just because the interest will start accruing immediately and you don't want to be dealing with that for years to come. And also don't sign loans that are more than you think you can pay, because kind of in the same way, there's interest associated, right? So you want to make sure that you're picking something that you think in the long run you'll be able to pay back. So those are like my last tips for you. But myself and my fellow money coaches are always available to answer any of your questions and to kind of help you work through your own unique financial situations. We offer appointments at the Money Spot on building cash flow, creating savings goals, affording college, improving your credit score, and paying down debt. If you'd like to make an appointment, you can visit our website at the Money Spot at vcu.edu, or you can schedule them through Navigate. All of our appointments this fall semester have been held virtually thus far, and then they will also be virtual in the spring 2021 semester. So keep that in mind as well. You can follow us on Instagram at the Money Spot to like kind of catch up with us, see what we're doing, and hear like tips and that kind of thing. And always, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to our email, themoneyspot@vcu.edu. Is there any other questions, any last minute things that people want to learn about, hear about, any specific questions?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take questions. Dorian, I've got a private question here. Somebody's asking, if I already have some credit built up, what are some ways I can continue building it? So like maybe if I've got secured credit, what are some next steps I can do there? If I have a store card, what are some next steps that I can do to keep building up my credit?
Sure, of course. You want to like maintain those types of credit that you already have, especially if it's cards. So you want to make sure that like you're consistently using them, so they aren't like canceling your account because they're like, oh, you're not using it. So make sure that like once a month, once every 2 months or whatever, you are buying something small, especially if it's like credit cards, and then you're paying it off immediately, because again, that's like lengthening your credit history. Also, you can apply for new types of credit as long as you've had like your store card or your secured credit card or whatever it is for at least like 6 to 12 months. It's not a bad idea to say, okay, hey, I think I'm ready for that next step. I think I'm ready for another form of credit. It's totally appropriate to go ahead and try to apply for something new that might have better benefits, or it might be with a different company or something like that, just to diversify yourself even further.
Great. I've got another question here about annual fees, asking if all credit cards have annual fees? What kind of rate should I be looking for that?
hmm I think that as best you can, you want to avoid cards with annual fees because you don't want to be having to pay more money than is necessary. There's plenty of cards out there with all different types of financial institutions and credit unions and stuff that don't have annual fees associated with them. So I would try as best you can to look for those kinds of options. And also you want to be like looking for cards that have like lower interest rates, like because again sometimes they'll get you with those cards with the great benefits but they have super high interest rates. Like you don't want to be dealing with that in the event that for some reason you can't pay something off in full every month. Like the more interest that there is, the more money you'll end up owing back over time. So you just want to try to minimize the interest rates and avoid annual fees.
And I'll say too, the better that your credit is, generally like the better benefits of cards that you will be able to find. So a lot of times you'll be looking at a card with a high annual fee if you don't have as much credit. And so then a secured credit option might be better for you. Or you might start out with that annual fee card. And then when you're able to apply for better credit, you might want to close that one out, even though it's going to bring down your credit history length. It may save you some money in the long run to not be paying the annual fee on that card. And it's the same thing with like rewards, cashback rewards, travel mile rewards. The better your credit is, the more that credit companies are going to want to offer you credit because they know you're a good, responsible lender. So that's how you can kind of get those things as well. Another question here's a really good question. Is there a limit on how many times I can apply for credit in a year?
Technically, I don't believe there is a limit, but I will say that you don't want to be applying for like too much credit every single year because it is a hard inquiry on your account every single time you apply for credit. So say at one time you might apply for like 2 cards, like those are each 2 separate hard inquiries on your credit. So you want to try to like limit it. Like, okay, say you apply for 1 card and you don't get it for some reason, like you don't get approved, like maybe apply for another 1 or 2 just to see. But then like if that doesn't work out, like that's when you kind of want to go to one of the other options that I mentioned as far as credit goes, just to try to get into the credit game like before like the door kind of closes.
Yeah,
you know?
remember that pie chart that we looked at. So new credit is going to put a ding on your credit score, on your credit report for a short amount of time. But then when you're using credit well, you can go 6 to 12 months and then apply for some more. And it's a good idea to ask when you are getting credit, if you're looking for a job, that kind of thing, if they're going to put hard inquiries on your account. Sometimes secured credit will not as much, but it's good to check and see if that's going to happen, because then you can be ready for that score to dip just a little bit. Let's see. Somebody else is asking, can the Money Spot help me with paying off student loans, or is that for financial aid?
So it's kind of both. The Money Spot can definitely help you come up with strategies to like structure your payment, or like to kind of like think about saving up the money to pay and going about that process and like walking you through that aspect of it. But like actually looking at your specific student loans is not something the Money Spot can do. So we would refer you to financial aid to like dig really deep into what's in your student account. But we can help you kind of create plans and like cash flows and stuff to help you kind of figure out, okay, like I know that I'll have to be paying X amount of money every month or whatever. How will I like structure my like finances accordingly to be able to afford that?
And one thing, going back to Dorian's tips earlier of not taking out loans of more than you can pay, studentaid.gov has a really great student loan repayment calculator that can give you an idea of what those loan payments might look like when you finish college and whether or not it really is reasonable, because it can be hard to have an idea of what 10 years in the future is going to look like. But I know that a lot of times when I've used that loan calculator with people, it's actually made their student loans look more manageable than they did at first. Because when you think about paying it over a 10-year period of time, we're hoping for good salaried jobs after we finish our degrees, then it shows a more reasonable payment for our student loans than just looking at that lump sum principal that we're using. So
Absolutely.
I definitely suggest that you check that out. And if you come to us at the Money Spot, we will show you that as well. Do we have any other, oh, we got one more. Nope, I already answered that. Any other questions before we break? You guys have asked some really great questions. When I was in college, I'll put myself out there. I didn't really understand credit. So I was trying to stay away from all of it. So I didn't really get to build any up until after I had graduated, and I wish that I had. Okay, somebody's asking, which loans have interest that accrue right away? Should I stay away from those? I'm guessing you're talking about student loans here, because most of your personal and private loans are going to accrue right away.
Right. But like the direct unsubsidized loans or like Parent Plus loans, private loans, all those kinds of loans will start to accrue interest immediately, as opposed to the direct subsidized loans, which the interest doesn't start accruing until after you graduate because the government is paying on them. And I mean, you're asking, should you avoid them? It's not necessarily like avoidable in a lot of situations. Like you have to like demonstrate the financial need in order to be able to qualify for a direct subsidized loan, which can, eliminate some people from that situation. So it's kind of an unavoidable thing in a lot of instances, but like, don't be scared of the fact that the interests or the loans are accruing that interest, because you can start, if you have some of the money available to you, paying that interest down immediately. Like you don't have to wait for your college career to be over in order to start paying it down. You can start right away, just like a little bit of money to start like kind of chipping away at it. So then by the time you're done, the like interest isn't so high.
Okay, we've got a really good question here. My parents say that I am too young to get a credit card now. How do I convince them of all of the benefits of starting early?
That's a good question. I mean, when you are like between the ages of like 18 and 21, you do have to like be able to demonstrate, like if you want to like get your own card, you do have to be able to demonstrate some kind of income, I believe. But like you can always be like, hey, like show or tell them about like all the great things that you've learned about credit. Like I think if you can sit down and have like those conversations with your parents and really bring them the facts and let them know what you've learned, they're seeing that you're more serious about it and that you are really thinking about your future and that you really care to start yourself off on the right foot, that they might be maybe more willing to have some real conversations with you and kind of rethink things. I know that's like a hard thing though, because sometimes parents can just be like, nope, you can't do that. But maybe asking like, okay, hey, if you don't want me to have my own credit card, like what about if I become an authorized user on yours, like where you can kind of have a little bit more control over what I'm doing, and kind of checking in to make sure I'm doing it properly. But like, you want to be able to start asking your parents like to build up that trust in you. Like, yes, I can handle it. I'm learning things. I can figure it out. I'm ready, that kind of thing. It's hard though. So.
And it could be helpful too, to kind of give them your plan for using a credit card, the strategies that you're going to be using. So like Dorian said, maybe having one that you're just using for gas, something you're spending money on anyway, and then planning to pay it off every single month. That could be helpful. And telling them your goals with credit too, right? Like if your goal is to be able to rent an apartment or to buy a house or something like that, that might help them see why you might want it. Another option is, again, the secured lines of credit. Maybe like a safer option if your parents are worried that you'll be irresponsible with it, or if you're worried that you'll be irresponsible with it, we got to be honest with ourselves too. Taking out that secured line of credit that you already have money for, and then allowing it to build up your credit that way. But I would also recommend making an appointment with one of our money coaches to maybe even practice having this conversation and to really get into maybe some of your parents' worries about it and some ways that you can combat that.
That's a really good question, though. I definitely understand that, like, your parents can be like, kind of like, oh no. So I get it.
Yeah, they don't want you to get into trouble.
Yeah, for good reason. For good reason.
All right. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Well, thank you so much for coming. We hope to see you in appointments. Again, you can email us with any other questions, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.